It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Chris, Breen, and Ihnatko are here. The reviews are in iPhone 4. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 201, recorded June 29th, 2010. 1-888 Facepalm. And by GoToMeeting. Do more and travel less with GoToMeeting. Make your next meeting a GoToMeeting instead. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. And by Audible.com. If you haven't tried Audible yet, download a free audiobook without a credit card now through July 2nd. Go to audible.com/summer. And by Hover.com. Hover is domain name registration and management that's simple. For 10% off your new domain, go to twit.hover.com. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers your Macintosh needs and satisfies them. Although lately it's not been much Mac. It's almost all iPhone, iPad, and other things. With us right now, as always, from his fortress of Macitude in beautiful New England.
I'm just abusing FaceTime right now.
He's FaceTiming himself.
I'm FaceTime. I want to do this entire show.
Oh, look at that!
Like 8-second delay by FaceTiming from this side of the office onto the other side of the office.
Wow!
There you go.
This must be what Steve Jobs was thinking when he invented it.
Well, enough of this, like talking to your children for the first time, enough communicating via sign language. This is exactly how this was supposed to be exploited by idiots like me, enjoying the fact that he sounds a little bit like an old-time stadium baseball announcer.
And also, in left field, batting number 3, Chris Breen, the fount of all Mac knowledge.
Oh, sorry, I was just playing iPhone poker here.
Stop it!
I've
How many?
Straight flush.
Is that the original iPhone?
Yeah, the original iPhone.
3G, the 3GS. Yeah, you had a touch mixed in there.
Yeah, my wife's got the 3GS, so that one's upstairs. But yeah.
Well, I think the iPod Touch can stand in for the 3GS. That's fair.
Yeah.
So I guess really, and by the way, Alex Lindsay is on assignment. I don't know what the hell that means, but he will be back with us next week. So it's Chris, Andy, and me talking about your Macintosh stories, and of course, what else we're going to talk about today. Although there is a lot more, and we'll get to that in a bit. But iPhone 4 came out on Thursday.
I have 4 by the desk, and I can probably get more, Chris. If you want to play, we can play.
Oh,
I can just go over there to that locker, and we can just play.
Oh, you guys. Don't you know about Gazelle, for crying out loud? Get some money for those things. Mine had a hard... Okay, I have one. I'm not going to show off. I have one, but mine had a hard crash. I was talking to you before the show began, and I put it in the gym locker when I came back from my exercise class. I tried to turn it on. It wouldn't go on, but Chris gave me the special 2-finger salute, which is you hold the home button and the on-off switch until it gives you the white apple.
Yeah, that's simply a demonstration of the iPhone smell sensor. And so that would indicate that you need to do your gym laundry a little more often.
A smellerometer.
Yeah. It basically tried to kill itself, and that's what happened. It went into a coma.
It could be. It could be. That's very possible. But, you know, I thought, what happened? I had it right next to my Bluetooth headset, and silly me, I thought, oh, I've somehow shorted them out, and because they both seemed like they were dead. So I don't know what happened there. But anyway, it's working well. Let's get I know both of you have written reviews of the iPhone 4 by now. I have not. First, let me ask you, Andy, did you have an advance copy, or did you start your review process on Thursday?
Oh, for the love of God. I actually did not get an advanced one. It was a little bit embarrassing because they got it to me by the fastest way possible was to have me pick it up in the store that morning. And so they actually FedExed it from Cupertino to my local Apple store. And I want you to imagine a line like a mile long And out of 1,000 people, maybe there will be a few people who recognize me and say, "Hey, Andy, nice to see you. Hey, Andy, nice to see you," that sort of stuff. And they're very, very nice and very, very kind. And here I am, like Queen Mary, just sailing right to the front, walking right in, then walking right out with a bag with 2 iPhones in it. And I'm just, I would like to compare like the looks I was getting on the way in to the looks I was getting on the way out. I felt really bad. I had this look of, all right.
Was Jason Bateman with you when all this happened?
Did he have a special access?
They actually pulled him out of line, out of the back of the line, and brought him up, and he sort of did this, the raincoat over his head, but he still went in and got the phone and came out with it.
Celebrities don't have to wait in line, don't you know?
Really?
Well, I didn't wait in line. See, I'm a celebrity. You know how I got my iPhone? I pre-ordered it on Tuesday. They put it on sale. I told the story already, but they put it on sale on Monday. I didn't get through because of the AT&T snafu, so I came back Tuesday and I ordered it. And I went through, and I was so happy until I saw July 15th ship date, and I went, oh. And then Tom Merritt was in line because he had pre-ordered for pickup, and we were talking to him because we broadcast the launch live. And I said, hey, just ask them. See if they'll sell you a second one. And they did. They said, oh, yeah, no problem. So he bought a second one and brought it back. So what is this? What is the latest on this? Apple says they sold 1.7 million iPhones. Are they in stock now? Is it easy to get them, or is it still kind of catch as catch can? Do you know, Chris Breen?
I believe it's still catch as catch can. I was actually surprised that they were selling them the day of. I was one of the people who stood in line. I was not escorted to the front. And they had the 2 lines. There was the one line of people who had pre-orders, and then there was the optimists who were in the second line.
Boy, that is
thinking,
an optimist too, huh?
Maybe we'll get it. And there were, like, I was in Monterey, California, which is not a big Apple store, and there were a couple of hundred people on that line. And I thought they would never get in. However, as we went through the line, about every 5 of the pre-orders that got in, they let somebody else in. So they did have a stock at the time, but eventually they went through that line and just said, we love it that you're this optimistic, but it's just not going to happen today.
Go home.
Yeah, go home. So I think Apple sold their 1.7. I think they were looking at couch cushions at Apple HQ to find as many as they could to sell them, because I think they sold out everything they had. They would have sold more if they had an opportunity to.
Why is my question. Why did this iPhone sell so much better than any iPhone to date? What is it?
I think it's because this is the first iPhone where you could communicate so very clearly what the difference is between this model and the last model. It's nice that the GS was faster than the 3G, but this one you're saying, you see this, the old display was like this. Our new display is like this. The old camera was a snapshot. The new camera is a great video thing. Our old camera our old phone left you more distant and unavailable to your friends and family. This one has FaceTime. Look at this cool demo. So it definitely
just
more
demoed well. And it's true, because even though, for geeks like me, the fact that they're now using the A4 processor, that was a big deal. The fact that they have better battery life, that's a big deal. But they didn't really push that very hard. They pushed the things that people, normal people would go, ooh, I want that.
Yeah. Well, also, AT&T made this more affordable for people. When Steve Jobs announced this thing originally, he said, and AT&T is being very generous and offering people who are first adopters of the 3GS an opportunity to get in without paying an arm and a leg to do that. I was thrilled that, because I got my 3GS the day of, and when it came time to update, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to pay the penalty. And I went back, and sure enough, it was only $199 for the 16 gig, plus $18. So I think a lot of the people who might have held off because they were going to have to pay this penalty didn't have to, and thought, well, great, I'll go get the new one. Why not?
Right. I guess that makes sense. And I would also guess that it's kind of like the Vista XP situation. There were a lot of people who didn't upgrade the 3G to the 3GS because, Andy, as you say, they weren't able to articulate the difference. Those people were due. They had it for 2 years. So it made sense to leapfrog, just as people leapfrogged Vista and went right to Windows 7. Do you think that is what happened?
Yeah, there's that as well. I mean, it's kind of silly to buy a new phone every year as they come out anyway. So it's kind of interesting to see how happy people are with the iPhone as a concept versus the ones who feel as though this feature is what's going to get me out to actually hand over my $200 or $300 and finally upgrade.
It's also, I mean, even 2 years is a fast turnaround time. From the feature phone era, you would keep it for years. But I guess nowadays with a smartphone, 2 years and out. Apple has shortened that time.
They've got us.
They got us. And for us, 1 year.
Because we care about our readers and our listeners. It's called responsibility.
Yeah, we have to. So let's get your thumbnail reviews, good, bad, and then we'll do the ugly. I would say the screen lives up to its billing, does it not? It really looks good. In fact, those people who said, oh, no, it's not a Retina display, you have to hold it at arm's length for you not to see pixels. I can't see pixels, even up close. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, my pal Phil Plate, who runs badastronomy.com, did a whole post about it. And he's an astronomer. He worked on the Hubble telescope, and he knows from optics. And so when Wired chose a rather clumsy headline saying, oh, that could be false advertising because Apple says that it's beyond the ability of the human eye to resolve, Phil says that if you have absolutely perfect vision, meaning that if your mom had like mythological congress with a hawk, and you've been gifted with absolutely perfect flawless vision, then it would be possible to discern individual pixels. Anybody who has anything less than absolutely perfect human vision would not be able to discern it. But when you hold it in your hand, it really does come across. I mean, when you the first thing you do is, of course, you put up a newspaper web page,
right? And
even with the entire web page scrunched into one screen, you can read headlines easily. You can even, as a stunt, read actual articles, and you can the stuff that's even too small to reasonably make out. At least you can sense what it is. I took a picture for my review to sort of point this out, that you can actually, through a magnifier, actually read what the weather and what the forecast is on the Chicago Sun-Times page, even though it's just like maybe 5 pixels high, even in the magnified view. So at the very least, you're not going to be reading that off the display, but at least when you take a look at this thumbnail view of the screen, you'll know, oh, well, that's the weather. I want to zoom in on that because that's information I'm interested in. And it carries through on every part, almost every part of the experience. I have a very, very one of my picks of the week a couple weeks ago was A Smart HUD, which is the app that's always running that just gives me my speed and just, something to keep an eye on while I'm driving. And it's just, really, all it is a 2-digit number with a compass around it. But the fact that not only is it high definition, but it's an ultra high contrast ratio, that it stops looking like a computer screen and it starts looking like a 35 millimeter slide. It's that good.
It's pretty
Photographs
spectacular.
Absolutely pop. Right, exactly. I mean, that's not just something I'm coming up with just to sort of explain it. I have a freeze frame on the movie Up. And huge dynamic range, huge detail in the image. But I, with the brightness turned all the way up, it is uncanny how much it looks like just a 35 millimeter transparency.
Really good looking. How about you, Chris? You agree?
Yeah, I do. I was out to dinner the other night with a couple of friends, and they had their 3GS with them, and I had my new iPhone. And they said, "Okay, let's do a test." And so we had a couple of images that were similar, and we A/B'd them against each other. And really, the new display looks so great with photos comparatively. And to compare the cameras as well, we took pictures with each one and swapped them back and forth via email. Said, oh yeah, this is, even this picture taken on a 3GS, when you bring it over to the 4, it really looks so much nicer on this display. Videos look great. Using something like Instapaper, you get really the fine edges of text where you don't on the 3GS and earlier iPhones. So as for a viewing experience, it's fabulous.
It's also... Go ahead, Danny.
I was just about to say, I mean, you're looking at some pictures that I took on Saturday downtown, and I was walking around with the iPhone 3GS, 2 different Android phones, and like my Nikon Pocket camera, shooting the same scene every time, same scene with all 5, so I can take them back and compare it. And it's such a good testimony to the iPhone's display that when I was on the green line on my way back to the car, I'm looking through all these pictures and like, my God, I mean the iPhone 4 is just kicking the butt of every other camera. It's not even close. And it wasn't until I got back and I dumped all these pictures back to my desktop that I realized that yes, the iPhone camera is better, but the reason why the other pictures looked horrible on the Droid X and on the Nexus 1 and these others, because the screen was not nearly as good.
Yeah, I like that AMOLED screen a lot, but I have to say there's nothing like the solidity and crispness. And by the way, this IPS screen from LG, when you tip it on its side, you have your viewing ratio is or angles, I should say, is really pretty impressive.
And it doesn't seem to have the same problem that the iPad screen has. Maybe just simply due to the fact that it's a smaller size. It's not on the iPad. It's very difficult to use it outside in bright sunlight. With the iPhone 4, it doesn't perform as well as the 3GS does in sunlight, but it's still perfectly usable.
Yeah, I think it really looks good.
Right.
Is that General Burnside there?
Yes. Well, a great uncle. Yes, he paid for half the library.
The inventor of the side burn.
Yes.
Just really, and these are all iPhone 4 pictures.
These are all iPhone 4 photos, yes.
And I guess really, as long as we're going to talk about the screen, we should talk about that. This is easily the best camera phone I've ever used. I mean, this is as good as a 5-megapixel camera. Look at the color. I don't see any artifacting. Even in the sky here in a high contrast situation with a lot of sunlight. This
very wide dynamic range.
Really surprisingly good.
Yeah. In the review, I had to say that, and this was intended as a compliment. I think a lot of people will hear it as a compliment. But I think it's the first phone camera that has to be thought of as a poor performing real pocket camera, as opposed to, wow, that's a really great picture considering that it came out of a phone.
Right,
of course,
right.
Because you spend, again, I spent like 4 hours walking around taking pictures with it, and within like 5 minutes I stopped saying, oh, taking a snapshot. Okay, I'm taking a snapshot here. I was getting into my photography groove of where's the light, where are the details, where's the focus.
It's pretty fast too. There's not a lot of latency. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Not only that, but you can actually take. There's no burst mode in it, but if you just keep pumping that button with your thumb, you can take several shots in very rapid succession. And that also comes. I think it's an iOS 4 feature as opposed to an iPhone 4 feature. But you can definitely rattle off 3, 4, 5 shots very, very easily. And that's another area in which the iPhone just absolutely trounces Android phones. I had 2 different versions of the camera app with the Droid X that has their own little skin on it, and the version of the camera app that comes in Froyo 2.2 that's coming out in a few weeks. And it was just a nightmare shooting pictures with these applications. I just hated using this thing, whereas the iPhone presents absolutely no barrier whatsoever. It seems like it wants you to take pictures.
You were using the 8-megapixel cameras in the Evo and the Droid X, is that right? Is it 8 megapixels?
On the Droid X, it's an 8-megapixel camera. It is a very, very good camera, I should say. It also shoots HD video. But if you put these 2 pictures side by side, you definitely notice a huge, not huge, but a very, very noticeable improvement. It's not something that would come out if you have good studio lighting and good, even balanced lighting on a set. In that sort of circumstance, they come out very, very equal. It's when you have the trickier situations where there's a shot in there where the swan boat's on that beautiful reflecting lagoon, and there's like weeping willows on the opposite shore. On the iPhone, it's a very, very lovely picture. On the Droid X, the background trees, it loses a lot of the shadow detail because it just doesn't have the sort of range to deal with the lightness of the leaves that are facing the sun and the darkness of the parts of the tree that are sort of buried in there. So you would never really, most of the pictures you'll take with an iPhone 4, you don't need to explain that I took this with my phone. You can just print it at 5x7 or 8x10, put it on the wall, and just not tell anybody about it. It does. I should say though, it does have 2 foibles. The white balance seems to be very easily bamboozled. There are many, many situations in which, where there's a good source of artificial light, where the white balance was not able to figure out, oh wait, that's tungsten. I shouldn't make the picture all yellow like that. The other problem is that it's more of a quirk than anything else. If it's in a situation where it has to either lose shadow detail or lose a highlight, it will choose to blow out a highlight almost every single time. It's easily worked around, and I also should mention that. On the, I have the Nikon P6000 sort of as a control, like what would a real like $300 pocket camera deal with this? Right. And it had many of the same problems. And also it's an easy thing to work around because with the iPhone, it does have that tap to focus, tap to do spot exposure. So
this dark one is that the Droid X, and then compare it to the iPhone?
Actually, all the ones that are up there right now are iPhone pictures. I'm going to be putting up the full gallery later tonight and should be available Wednesday.
So you tapped the trees, it looks like, then, and you got a better exposure
right
on this one.
Exactly. Well, yeah. through most of these tests, I was the rule I set for myself was to not use any of the manual settings. Just hold up frame the picture, squeeze the shutter, whatever the camera decides to do, it decides to do. For that particular shot, I decided to try to use the modes in each individual camera to make for a better picture.
Right.
And that is one area in which I wish that we had some of the Android features because, for instance, the Android 2.2, the Froyo version of the camera app gives you fine fine control. You can simply say, please overexpose this by a stop.
Yeah.
Please underexpose this by a stop. Here's the white balance setting I want you to use. And they're actually very, very accessible.
Yeah.
I really, really wish that there was like just a little star in the corner of the camera apps screen on the iPhone where it would just rotate around. Instead of having those two little, those two simple adjustment photo buttons, now I have a full range of cluttered SLR-based controls where I can set everything manually. It would really elevate that camera considerably.
Chris, you agree? You concur? Any other thoughts about the camera?
I've spent a lot of time with the video part of the camera because for Macworld, I review their pocket camcorders, and I wanted to see how this thing compared to a flip camcorder. And it's close. It's not as good as a flip.
It's not as good as a flip. That's interesting, because that's...
No, I don't think so.
People were saying this is going to hurt the flip.
No way.
Well,
interesting.
No, because, a flip doesn't cost you 2 years' worth of service. And the flip really does produce much better audio. The mic in the flip is much more sensitive, so you get better, louder audio. These things all pocket camcorders tend to blow out the highlights. So I took a stroll around my garden, and invariably when I'd get dark background with a bright yellow flower, or a bougainvillea where it's bright pink, the pinks and the yellows blew out terribly, just as they do on most pocket camcorders. The flip tends to tamp that down a little bit. It's still not great. It's not like using a full-sized HD camcorder, but it's better than what the iPhone is doing. Still pictures I thought were great because I mixed up in the garden between stills and video, and I put it all together in iMovie for iPhone. And the video was okay, but the stills were fabulous. They really came out looking just beautiful. And I didn't get as much of that bloom in the stills as I did with the video.
Michael Corbell of MajekPictures.com, M-A-J-E-K Pictures.com, has posted on his site a video that he shot entirely and edited entirely with the iPhone. For those of you watching the video of the podcast, there is a video as well as audio now. I'm just going to play a little bit of this. This was edited in the phone, shot in the phone and edited in the phone using iMovie. And it's really a short movie that looks kind of surprisingly, amazingly good, considering the whole thing is done on the iPhone. And he said it took him about 48 hours to do the whole thing. Close-ups, 2 shots, master shots. I hate talent, don't you?
It should all be done by the phone.
Even the soundtrack, even the music, which is pretty amazing. Now, this is a model railroad that he's, I guess, put the phone on. Don't you think this is pretty good?
Yeah.
For those, listening, you just have to go view the video or just go to MajekPictures.com. He's got crane shots. He's got pans. He's obviously very steady hand.
No, he's got to have that on a rig. I would love to know what sort of
like an Owly or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you have the same problem that I had? I felt that I shot a demo video at my comic shop and all the other samples that I was shooting. It works great if you can hold it steady. If you try to move with your subject or move at all, boy, there's a lot of shake and shudder. I don't know whether it's the shape of, it's just the idea of having to hold the camera in that sort of awkward sort of picture frame sort of mode, or whether it's just something about how it processes movement. But that was
here's the rig. Here's the rig. He did in fact have a rig. Look at that. He's got
okay.
He's got a little crane and a dolly.
And a crew of 43
and
people.
And a crew, yeah. Okay, never mind. But still, that's the point that we're making here is the phone is making the pictures,
Right. Put any other phone in that kind of rig, and you wouldn't get results as good as that, I don't think. Especially if you try to edit it.
But you could look at the bright colors in this. You could really see that they're blown out when they go and pan to the guy's hat. It's just totally white and has a hard time knocking it down.
The biggest thing to me is that there's no hardware image stabilization, either stills or doesn't. I don't believe there is. Oddly enough, when we were doing FaceTime, there was pretty clearly image stabilization of some kind. Maybe it was just software based. But I think that's kind of...
Maybe that has to do with the fact that when you're doing FaceTime, it doesn't have to write all that stuff to disk.
Right.
So it has less heavy lifting to do. That did occur to me when I was testing out the video, because As you can see, the 720p is below the largest resolution of that 5-megapixel camera. So you would think there's enough room that it can sort of like do some soft stabilization inside the frame. But I'm guessing that this is a very, very processor intensive sort of thing. I can actually feel the back of the phone not get hot, but get noticeably warm.
That is something. This phone does heat up.
Yeah, exactly.
It
doesn't get uncomfortable. So you won't get like singed hair on the top of your knees or anything like that, as you do with with some of the MacBooks. But it actually made me wonder if that was one of the reasons why they decided to go with glass for the back, because glass will conduct the heat away. Plastic will tend to insulate a little bit, and metal will just probably be way too painful.
Here from Jalopnik is another short film done in the iPhone 4 called 156 Turns. This is, let me get this in the high def mode here before we start playing it. But this is an example of, because of the portability of the iPhone, the small size of it, you're going to be able to do stuff. Also, the unobtrusiveness of it, you're going to be able to do stuff that you probably couldn't do. It is a little washed out. The colors are not, super rich. The contrast is not super great, although I think with some processing you could fix that.
I got asked a question once. Have you ever caught ear up here? And I said,
so look at these other big cameras people are using in this. That's the one negative, is you might feel like a little bit of a dork shooting this with your camera phone. People might say, well, they can't be serious.
He's ever wanted, so I'm just there to support.
I think that what we're going to see, look, this is good enough. This is broadcast quality. What we're going to see is a lot more video shot in the field by people who have iPhone 4s who are there. For news gathering, just the impact is huge.
I think there's some processing in there, some post-processing in there, because you can't do subtitles like that.
No, this is not they didn't edit it with iMovie 4. They shot it. They shot it. You can see speed up and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
But it's filmed with an iPhone. It says no color correction on this, and I think that's actually, you can kind of see that.
Yeah. Well, to me, the really big win is that iMovie for the iPhone really shows you how well a multi-touch operating system is towards doing video editing. And I've got, from the China trip, from every other trip, I don't shoot lots of video, but I shoot enough that it makes me feel guilty that I just simply copied onto my Drobo and I never do anything with it, because it just seems like such a production. And yet, after I got home from shooting the comic book shop, I didn't really intend to start editing while I was eating dinner, but I was just started noodling around with it, and it sort of came across as a game. And by the end of 10 or 15 minutes, I had cut together a very not a broadcast quality thing, but at least something that would have satisfied me enough that I could post it onto YouTube. So I could definitely see myself on the plane home from my trips, with the iPhone 4 in my hand, just doing video editing, and then by the time I get home, I can actually upload HD, finished, edited together stuff to my YouTube channel, or just hand them out to friends.
This also shows that, with some clever editing, and if you know what you're doing, you can make it look like it's got zoom. You can make it, you can simulate a lot of the things that you're missing from a real video camera. He's jump cutting a zoom and so forth. And this is kind of amazing. This is a guy on a Ducati with the phone, looks like strapped to the handlebars, and that's kind of something you really aren't going to do with your.
I think it was one handling it. That doesn't
it might have been one handling it.
It wasn't too far of a cliff on the way down.
It's look, it's exciting. It's exciting. So we love the screen, no doubt about it. Still camera, excellent. Video camera, pretty good. No, not a flip killer. Okay.
Right.
FaceTime. Chris, have you made a lot of FaceTime calls?
Not a lot. I've done it a couple of times just to see what it's like.
I have a picture of me doing FaceTime at Foo Camp with Robert Scoble. This is about the way most of us are doing FaceTime right now. I'm 5 feet away. But it worked. We were on the same Wi-Fi network. It worked. What do you think?
Yeah, it works. I just wonder about the longevity of this thing. Is whether people really want a video chat that way. And, I'm not going to talk to my people at work and say, oh, hi, how are you? Because then I have to, get dressed, and I have to, do the hair, and that takes hours. And I don't know. I much prefer not, people using their imagination. What does Chris's hair look like right now? I bet it's fabulous.
Before it's inflated, yeah.
Right, it's in curlers, or there's gel in it, or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe I expect a lot of people using FaceTime right now to try it and go, oh, this is really cool, and then do those sort of, here's grandma kind of things. She can't be here right now, but here she is on FaceTime. And, oh, I'm on a business trip. And, hi, honey, here I am. It's great. Honey. And look, I'm in Las Vegas, but I'm in my hotel room, and it's 10 o'clock. I told you I'd be here.
Right.
So there's a lot of, possibility for fake backdrops for this kind of thing. But I think, I don't know, Andy, what do you think about day-to-day communication versus FaceTime? I think it's cool. I like it. It works really well.
It's a gimmick. I thought it was a gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to be the way we communicate in the future?
Well, I don't know. I certainly don't think it'll transform the way we communicate. But you think about what it used to be like to edit actual film. It's something that nobody did unless they could make money off of it or whether they were passionate about it, because it was just so technical and so expensive and so difficult. There's so many steps involved. What I like about FaceTime is the fact that you push one button and conceivably you are video chatting with somebody. So you're right. I don't even like talking to people on the actual phone. I would much rather text them. I'd much rather send them a photo. But there's so many places, and I don't have kids. But there's so many times when, like, I'm in someplace really incredible and I want to, share it with a good friend and saying, guess where I'm calling you from? I'm totally in the Forbidden City in Beijing, dude. Here's the Forbidden City. And it sounds stupid, but you get pleasure out of sharing, like, your place and your time with that. And also, my dad, when the amount of technology that he bought when the first grandchild was coming aboard, okay, he upgraded his camera, he bought a brand new camcorder, he got all this stuff going. I really have to think that if you know that your daughter has an iPhone 4, and then the fact that if you have an iPhone 4, it means that anytime you call to say hi, you can be looking at live video of your grandkid.
That might sell some iPhones.
$200. My dad would have spent that money, boom, without.
That's a good point.
Before he could even come up with the alibi for mom, he would have spent that money.
No, I think that's a very good point. It just remains to be seen whether it changes our culture. That's a big cultural shift to move to video phone calls, more so than you just using Skype, which a lot of us do. And I know. Before we started, both of you guys said the only time Skype's ever on in your houses is when you're doing a podcast. So. Maybe Skype hasn't really penetrated as much as I feel like. I use it a lot. What?
Yeah, I'm like Andy. I use text. I email people. I can control the message.
I just thought of one of those lines that I can't say because we don't have the explicit tag.
Okay. I get it. All right.
Sometimes I really feel as though
And FaceTime is only Wi-Fi, although that sounds like Steve implied that that might change when carriers came along. And by the way, carriers plural.
It sounds like that's his like Dr. No doomsday weapon against AT&T. Either increase your coverage or we will enable 3G access for FaceTime. You have 4 hours before we destroy your network.
Yeah. What other features? I do think there's a little bit better battery life. Have you seen better battery life?
I think that it's better, but I think that's largely eaten up by the cost of the screen and the stuff that you do with it. The most important metric is can I get a full day's worth of intermittent use out of it? And when I'm in heavy use, can I get at least 3 or 4 hours of use out of it? And that's within that margin quite comfortably.
Yeah. What do you think,
my
Chris?
battery was down after spending 3 hours doing nothing but shoot, photo, video. After 3 hours, my battery was down to about 20%. I think that's perfectly reasonable for that kind of use.
Has Macworld done any battery testing? Yes.
They have. We've done it. We've gone into the lab with it. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are, but I think we've noticed that it is better. It's certainly not iPad-like, where you get to the end of the day with your iPad and go, wow, look at that. I've still got 68% left.
Right.
In my own personal use, I've found that whereas my previous phone was just terrible, that I'd get 5 or 6 or 7 hours and then I'd have to stick the thing in a charger. I don't have to do that now. I can get to the end of the day of moderate use and still have something left. Not a lot, but at least I can get through an entire day. Yeah,
that's been my experience, and that's good. Here is
the real big news, I think, is talking about radio reception and network speeds, because people have been talking about the problems it have with the antenna. But another thing I was doing is every time I was keeping a very close eye on the 3GS is my personal phone, and every time I was in a place where I saw I was not getting the full 5 bars, I would instantly take out the iPhone 4, and I would always have better coverage on the iPhone 4 than with the 3GS. And now it works with HD USPA, and so now uploading photos is more than 4 times faster It was such an improvement of the 3GS.
That's in a few markets, right? It's not everywhere, is it?
I don't know if it's everywhere. It is reliant on upgrades that AT&T has made here in New England. I didn't have to walk around in order to find that happening. Again, more than 4 times the speeds. Download speeds too were increased by, according to my test, about 15%. That's nothing to sneeze at. Right. GPS performance, they put in a much upgraded GPS chip. I'm getting signal lock much faster. I'm getting a lot less walking, so to speak. When you're out and you check your average speed, it says, oh, my average speed was 731 miles per hour. I guess that was what that boom was like. It wasn't a pothole. I actually passed the speed of sound. That's what happens when GPS suddenly says, oh, actually he's 50 yards from the left. No, he isn't. He's right back where he was before. So I'm getting fewer things like that. In terms of, and also 8211N networking built in, the lower band, not the upper, not both bands, but at least you get the lower band there. So it's unfortunate that there's that problem with the antenna, but it's an easily avoidable problem. And the benefits you get from the other features on the hardware more than make up for it. That's not even talking about the camera, not even talking about the processor, not even talking about the screen. I would still upgrade from my 3GS to the iPhone 4 if all I got was this improved reception, improved GPS, and improved Wi-Fi.
Wow, you're pretty positive. I am not so positive about the antenna issue, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Andy Ihnatko is here from the Chicago Sun-Times. Pardon me?
I was about to interrupt, but then you were about to go, so no problem.
I'm about to go, but interrupt me when I get back. How about that?
Well, when you before you start to get back, I will keep you from getting back so that Chris and I can continue the show without you and take it in an exciting new direction that I think readers and advertisers will appreciate.
TechCrunch launched TechCrunch TV today, and I was trying to watch a little bit of it, and it's so professional. It looks so much like real TV. I thought, well, we don't have anything to fear. We're the unprofessional alternative to television on the internet. Stay tuned.
They might hire me as the weatherman, but they wouldn't let me near the anchor desk.
Never let you near the anchor desk. Coming up, we will do a little bit of the negative, maybe a lot of the negative on the iPhone, because I think there are some negatives. And in fact, I'm still not convinced that the iPhone is the way to go, despite all of those great things that I do agree with you about the camera, the incredible screen. There are some pretty severe negatives. We'll talk about those in just a little bit. Andy Ihnatko. Chris Breen is also here from Macworld Magazine. He's the Mac Daddy, senior editor for Macworld.com. Before we go much farther, I do want to mention our friends at Citrix who bring us the fine product we know as GoToMeeting. These days, you've got these conference calls that seem to be kind of de rigueur in business, but when was the last time you were in a conference call that was not, kind of tedious, boring, unproductive? There wasn't somebody playing with the Tetris or their Farmville while they were on the phone. And you can always tell because there's this silence all of a sudden, and you can tell it just you've lost them. People lose interest, they disengage, it's not productive. And I think of what happens at the end of a conference call like that, people hang up feeling we've wasted our time. That's where GoToMeeting can really help. Not only make your conference calls more productive, but give people the feeling that really this has been effective. This has really happened. We were on the same page because you were, literally. Here's how it works. If you go right now to the website, gotomeeting.com/MacBreak, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial, unlimited meetings for 30 days, as long as you want, as often as you want. Includes, by the way, free voice over IP and phone teleconferencing, and a great iPad app that's free that really it makes it fun to go to a GoToMeeting. Set it up. It take you 30 seconds. Before I'm done talking, you'll have it installed. Now, the next time you're on a conference call, all you have to do is say, hey guys, hold on. Let's table this for a minute. I really need to show you something. Or I want to show you the PowerPoint or the keynote presentation. I want to show you the spreadsheets or the whatever it is. Let's work together on this document. Whatever it is that you're meeting about, you undoubtedly have visuals you're looking at. You say, gotomeeting.com. Here's the meeting ID. They go there. 20 seconds later, they're seeing your computer on their screens. They see your desktop, your slides. They can flip it and show you theirs. Suddenly, I can't explain it, but you've got to try this. The meeting comes to life. People are engaged. They're excited. And they get offline saying, we did something. We got something done. Mac or PC, 30 days free. GoToMeeting.com/MacBreak for a free trial. Please do try this. I think you'll see it makes a huge difference. GoToMeeting.com/MacBreak.
Oh, when you smiling, when you smiling, the whole
By the way, notice that is not an iPhone 4 they're using in this phony FaceTime commercial.
I want you to be here.
When you're laughing.
Hey, say hi to your dad.
Yes, the sun.
The potential of the video phone call. Apparently, Dad is not really into it.
You bring on the rain.
You know, it's so unfortunate that some people have little, tiny, grinchy hearts that can't see.
And be happy again. Yes, and keep on smiling.
Grandma's kind of a loser, and now you can see it in video.
And I hope the world smiles for you.
That is great. A little phony FaceTime from collegehumor.com/originals. And I think that kind of says it all. That maybe there's times when you just really don't want a video call. You're listening or watching MacBreak Weekly. Leo Laporte with Chris Breen, senior editor of Macworld.com. Hello, Chris Breen and Ihnatko, who is about to interrupt me.
No, because I'm sure you're right about whatever it is you're about to say.
All right, so let me tell you. Okay, I'm a lefty, and I for some reason, maybe it's just me, I think this antenna issue is actually a bigger. At first, I poo-pooed it. In fact, I pointed to an article written by an RF engineer saying all phones have this problem. It's a normal thing ever since they took antennas out of phones. They've had to put the antenna in the body, and you're going to have this attenuation if you hold the phone right where the antenna is, yada, yada, yada. So I was really in the first few days saying, you know, I guess this is just the way it is. Steve Jobs is right. You should hold it different. You should get a case. But I got to tell you, I have killed. This is AntennaSys blog, by the way, AntennaSys.com if you want to read the I think I thought very good article about iPhone issues and why it's going to be a problem with all phones. And in fact, it was a problem apparently with the iPhone 3. We tried it with the Palm Pre on Thursday, and the same thing happened with the Palm Pre. But it really, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, maybe it's just me, it seems to be a big problem. I routinely kill my phone. Routinely, just by holding it all the time.
Well, it depends on what it's. I think that Apple shouldn't have released such a glib response, saying, "Well, just don't hold it that way. No deal. Come on, don't bother me with this sort of stuff." It is a problem. I have so many phones in this house that when Apple explained that, well, it's something that happens to all phones, we don't feel this is a big problem. Okay, fine, let me get out the iPhone 3GS and every other phone that I have that's working, and I really couldn't reproduce that kind of problem with any of these other phones that I was having with the iPhone 4, and I did notice it from the very moment that I first charged it up and took it out of the box. So it's a bigger problem than that. However, now I do think that it is a incredibly good idea for multiple reasons to have your iPhone in some sort of a case.
I guess I'm going to get a case, but I thought it was so pretty.
The bumper case is going to be a good idea anyway. And if you have anything covering the metal, then it's absolutely not a problem for you.
Right.
Now, even without the case, I have to hold it in a way that I don't normally hold the phone,
right?
Because I almost never make phone calls like this. Secondly, when I hold it, I tend to hold it like this so that my thumb can be free. So if it were the sort of thing where it was impossible to hold it in any sort of a natural way without blocking the signal, that would be a problem. If there was any way to no way to avoid it, like putting in a case, that would be a problem. And if there were no other benefit to the phone other than to have this really cool, stylish little border about it, it would be a bigger problem. I don't think it's a deal breaker, though. Again, it is a problem, but I don't think it's a deal breaking problem.
You agree?
I didn't cancel my order after this thing came. So
you agree, Chris Breen?
I certainly think it's a PR issue for them, and I agree with Andy. I think their response at first was ill-considered. The idea that somebody spent a lot of money on this device, and Apple has said it's magical and wonderful, and yet they say, well, yes, but you can't hold it as you normally do. I'm a right-handed person, and I hold it in my left hand so that I have my right hand to do things with, and I do cover those things with my hand. But Apple has to have some kind of response other than, oh, we'll hold it differently, or all phones do it when maybe they don't. But maybe that answer isn't either, we didn't know. What I am surprised is that given the amount of time they spent with this thing and testing it, that somewhere along the line somebody didn't say, oh, have you noticed the bars drop when we do this? And I don't know if it's because
that's incredible.
They're internal and saying, oh, gee, well, we have so much coverage here, nothing can, it can penetrate our sweaty palms. But I think it is surprising, and it seems that Apple was caught off guard on this and needs to come up with a fix or at least a better explanation about what's going on. Either A, it is a problem, hold it differently, or no, it isn't a problem at all, look somewhere else.
Well, I mean, clearly it's bad timing given, or a bad thing to have happen given people's complaints about dropped calls. I mean, it resonates in the psyche that Apple's, another problem with dropped calls or another problem with their reception. I had my attitude was the same until I realized I can't use this phone. Because I'm sorry, you could try to train me. I'm going to have to get a case, I guess. I mean, I can't use this phone without a case is the point. But you could try to train me, but it always goes back to holding it the same way, and I don't want to have to think about, I got to hold it with 2 fingers. Daniel Aaron Dilger writes in appleinsider.com, he says he tweeted, and if you cover the microphone, you can't speak, and you cover the earpiece, you can't hear. It's not that. It's not that. It is something that should work better. It's almost a deal breaker. It's that bad for me. I mean, I don't want a phone that I can accidentally mishold and lose the call. That's just dumb. Anyway, it may be a software flaw. This is the interesting surprise. Apple says it's going to ship 4.01 early next week. And some people have observed that the same problem was not as big a problem on the 3GS until iOS 4. It's thought that perhaps the flaw is that when you short out the phone like that by covering this plastic band at the bottom of the left-hand side, the phone is supposed to jump to another frequency. Instead, it turns the radio off. And so that somehow it's not calibrated correctly, and that a software fix could actually fix the problem. Does that make sense?
Huh. Okay. If that's the way if that's the way it's being described, where it's not simply that universal performance of that antenna degrades, it's simply that it's supposed to switch to a different frequency, and the software that controls that is not working. That's certainly possible. I'm with Chris. It seems incredible to me that this problem would not have ever surfaced during testing. Yeah. That it's, and by that I don't mean that's something suspicious. I'm saying I'm trying to work out a scenario in which they could have found this out at some point during the development process and not been able to fix it, or not been able to make a tweak, or at least said this is a deal-breaking issue. We need to stop, or at least delay.
Also, Daniel points out in his article on Apple Insider, and this confirms your experience, Chris Breen, that it only occurs on a WWAN 3G network, not with a microcell 3G network.
Right. I have a microcell in my office because I get no reception otherwise, and it's that far away from me now. So I could put this thing in a black box from a crashed airline, and I would still get reception on it because I'm that close to the thing. And I've tried it around the house, and I've done everything I could to try to cover the antenna and see if I can get the bars to drop, and it just won't happen. So my concern is, will their hardware fix basically be to send every iPhone 4 owner a little sticker that has 5 bars in it that you just place right there? No, because when I first heard about this, I thought, well, is it a perception issue that the bars are dropping, but you're actually not losing calls? But your experience seems to indicate that no, you actually lose calls.
Now, the funny thing is I don't make that many calls, and I suspect most iPhone users make far fewer calls than they used to. And I do Bluetooth calls more often than not. It doesn't drop off on Bluetooth calls. But it was really annoying to put the phone next to your ear and lose the call because you're holding it as I would normally hold a phone. Is extremely annoying. There's another problem that I have noted. I don't know if you guys have noted, but something's wrong with the accelerometer. Almost immediately, I put the thing up to my ear and I muted the call twice. Normally on an iPhone, when you hold it up, it turns off the screen. It doesn't seem to be doing that, or it's doing it inconsistently. Have you noticed that problem?
I haven't noticed it, but some people have been mentioning problems with the proximity sensor. I talked to some of the people for whom that was happening. They couldn't describe it to me accurately enough that I could really feel as though I understood the problem.
Yeah, and it may be, and I should always say this, it's just, this is my experience with one phone, so maybe I have a lemon, although I do see a lot of others reporting this problem, and it was surprised me because I never had this problem with an iPhone before. In fact, that was one of the most elegant things that the iPhone did was when you're on a call and you hold it up to your ear, the screen can't be touched, and it was really shocking me that I was muting the calls, I was dialing. Yeah, I apologize for people I talked to in the first couple of days after I got the iPhone because I was sending long dial tones down the pipe, and I was so unexpected. I didn't think it was me. I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Oh, so, it was you, but there's also a technical thing.
It was me, and it was the phone. And it may just
plus
be
you were texting obscenities to people accidentally as you were making a call.
What about the yellow dots problem? There was some suggestion by one person on a forum that it went away with time, that it was probably the glue hadn't dried. The laminating glue that laminates the glass to the LCD panel. I guess with your Mac 911 column, Chris Breen, you would have heard a lot about this.
Yeah, I heard the reports, and it seems to be everybody's experience who's gone through it is, I'll just wait a couple of days and the glue will dry and you won't see the yellow spots anymore. And in the last few days, I haven't heard a single peep about it. So either it's true or it was limited to a very small number of phones and it did clear itself up. Or people are just so amazed by their phones, they're not paying any attention to it.
A little P never hurt anybody.
That's whatever it is.
Those are some very, very long shifts at the Foxconn factory. They have to meet quota.
You think that's what it is?
Understand it. I'm not saying. I'm just
just guessing. Just speculating.
I think it's unicorn.
I'm just promoting rumors and scandal.
All right, enough. I think we'd agree that what do we agree is the iPhone the must-buy phone of the month. I was going to say the year, but I think we can at least say the month, can't we?
Yeah, I would wait till next week to see if Apple releases that update.
Yeah.
If this antenna issue can be solved in software, that would be great if it were solved, so that people would not be able to, or wouldn't have to go in thinking, I actually need my iPhone to work as a phone, and I'm concerned about drop calls. Apple has to address this in some way, and we'll see next week if they really do come out with a software update that deals with it.
It is an unusually competitive environment, much more so than it has been in the past. We have a Droid X coming out, the Droid 2 coming out. These new Samsung Galaxy S-based phones are coming out in a variety of different form factors with keyboards and not keyboards. There's some great phones based on Android coming out this month.
Yeah, I mean, I've practically had it put out, and then there's also going to be the Droid 2 coming out in August. For those of you who like flip out keyboards, it's almost so that I really actually have to map out my upcoming phone reviews to make sure that I'm not doing the entire month of phone reviews. Which has been the problem of the past couple of months.
Yeah,
but there is something that Apple has a consistent problem with, that they are always so committed to developing new design concepts and new manufacturing processes, that this is just general advice that I give people, that when Apple develops a brand new way of putting something together, whether it's the brand new Mac Mini, this brand new iPhone, or they redesign the chassis of a MacBook, if you can, it's not a bad idea to wait a month or two, because this is they're not really going to understand all the problems of the process and the design until they have 100,000, 200,000, 1 million of these out and being used on a daily basis. I honestly do think that this is such a radical new design that we are going to see a revision B at some point in the next year. And it is just a phone. Like I said before, the antenna problem doesn't affect me the way that it apparently affects some other people. Even if it did, there's an easy workaround for it. And I think the added benefits of the iPhone 4 outweigh that kind of the inconvenience of having to put that little band around it. But I mean, your mileage may vary, I suppose.
Yeah. By the way, if you can't find anybody to FaceTime with, Apple has solved that problem quite conveniently. 1-888-FaceTime. Sounds like a joke.
I want to FaceTime with you.
888-FaceTime.
It's so humid here in the college co-ed dorm.
Do you mind? I'm just a little overheated.
What you got? I bet that they invented that job just for the engineer who lost the phone in the beer hall. This is your punishment.
Ray
You
Powell
have to work this
at 188 FaceTime. May I help you?
Yes, that was
Good news is you're not being fired.
Yeah. Bad news.
You're that guy.
You're that guy. So
there's now a new dance monkey dance button on the phone.
have either of you? Come on. Can we tell? I haven't called it. Have any of you called it? Should we call it?
Sorry.
No, give it a call. Let's find out.
I don't know what'll happen. Let me try it. Why not?
Dial carefully. I'm afraid if you one digit off, who knows what you're going to end up with.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't want to do it wrong here. Let me pull up. Okay, 888. And this is one of the interesting things about the iPhone is that when you do FaceTime, you make a phone connection first, and they say it's not going to cost you minutes once you go to FaceTime. But it's a little counterintuitive because it seems like you're making a phone call. Now, if the person is in your directory, in your contact list, you could directly FaceTime them via Wi-Fi only. So, all right, this is exciting. Oh, there we go. Wait a minute. Hey.
Don't hold it that way.
Oh, it keeps going dark on me. All right, FaceTime. Hello? FaceTime failed. FaceTime failed. What's going on here? Hello? It says I have to be calling with an iPhone 4.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah, I think it's an iPhone 4. It has this.
Like an iPhone 4 to me.
It says the square buttons. Let's try that again.
Your Wi-Fi signal isn't like down to 0 bars or anything?
No, I'm full Wi-Fi.
Oh well.
Hi. I don't see the face. I just wanted to try the FaceTime. It's not. It's failing. My name's Leo. I don't really want to give that out. I'm just wondering why it won't. It keeps saying failed. Oh, you have to call me back. Oh, okay. Well, I'll try this another time. Thank you.
I'll try the Butterball hotline. Maybe they have FaceTime.
Do you think? I wonder if that's a good question. If the third parties, I could see FaceTime roulette.
Oh God! Now I hate the.
You know, there is one industry right now that has a FaceTime number.
You got to think.
Oh, you know they do.
You got to think. Well,
dial XXX.
Operators are standing by.
And, yeah. Lying by.
It's funny that he didn't know my phone number. I don't know why he wouldn't know my phone number.
Everybody knows your phone number, Lee.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. I'll leave it to somebody in the chat room to try it and see. Yeah, I couldn't say. Obviously, I couldn't continue because I can't say my phone number on the air because then I'll never be able to use this phone again. That happened once before and it wasn't pretty. All right. Anything else you want to say about the iPhone before we move on?
Not.
Let's see.
Not really.
Apple's site accidentally reveals there will be an iWork for the iPhone. We don't know if this is a typo or what, but a screenshot highlighting the iPhone's ability with iOS 4 to open attachments and external applications showed the words iWork for the iPhone.
Right, and earlier during the actual launch week, there was a screenshot that had open in Keynote, I believe, before they pulled that one down.
Right.
So they got to change an O-ring there on the PR on the PR bus because things are leaking out.
That's MacRumors.com with that story. I don't know. It doesn't make me jump up and down. I bought it, of course, on the iPad, but I've rarely used it.
Well, it'd be nice for Keynote.
Keynote would be cool.
Presentations and plug the thing into a projector.
Keynote would be pretty neat.
Yeah.
I guess, let's see, any other iPhone stories just before we move on? Oh, Kindle. The Kindle app is updated for the iPhone and the iPad to add video and audio support. So that's interesting. Of course, you'd have to have books that have audio and video, and I don't know of any yet, but that's a really interesting play, especially on the iPad, I think, because it means that publishers who are publishing to the Kindle platform may want to start including multimedia in there.
Right. Well, actually, though, if we're moving off of iPhone 4 and into iPhone and iPad in general, Hulu has just announced that they're going to be offering Hulu to the iPad and the iPhone for $9.95 a month.
I know. I think that's a very interesting story. This is Hulu Plus. You can download it. Let me zoom out a little bit here for you.
Oh, you've already downloaded it.
Yeah, it's going to be my next story. Hulu.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
You're like,
I didn't know. See, the news only came across like after we've been going for like 20, 30 minutes. I don't know whether, there have been times when I've held off and said my pick of the week. I'd like to talk about Steve Jobs resigning as CEO, which he just announced 20 minutes ago.
What?
And is having bought a seat on the International Space Station.
Careful. So Hulu Plus will be $10 a month. $9.99 a month. More episodes, more seasons, more shows now on your TV, iPhone, and iPad in HD. You can go to the store, the App Store, and download it for free, but you have to request, if you want it, you have to request an invitation. And as soon as I pressed request an invite, I got, this service is not yet available. Sorry, check back often. You can't even request the invite. So a little premature putting the application up on the store, since you can't
access it via the web. I access it via just a desktop browser and it worked just fine.
Yeah. So maybe I could sign in via a desktop browser.
Right.
The following clip is brought to you by Kin. If that's the Microsoft Kin, I'll be amazed. And there you have it. Not exactly HD, but I am able to watch the Family Guy on my iPad. So that's kind of that's huge news. Not unexpected. We'd heard the rumor about it for a while.
Yeah, but it's nice that's actually coming through, and that's just another brick out of the Flash wall. That basically, when people complain that they don't get Flash content or don't get streaming video on the iPad, there's another sign that companies that do streaming video are willing to convert their content and accommodate the iPad and the iPhone on their own.
And it indicates that Hulu finally has a plan.
Yeah, right.
They have the web browser, and they keep locking people like Boxy out. So finally, yes, we're going to make you pay for this. And it's fine as long as they get their catalog updates, so I get an entire season of programs instead of the 3rd, 7th, and 12th episode or something.
Possibly more important, really, to the future of non-Flash video, the fact that, according to Conceivably Tech, a leading adult film studio, Digital Playground, has announced its intentions to go to HTML5 and abandon the Flash platform. Where porno goes, who can fail to follow?
And it's already happening. Not that I spend much time checking out these sites, but as part of my research to see what's happening in terms of HTML5 versus Flash, there are sites that are already doing this, and they've made iPad compatible. Oh, yeah, of course. And they've always been on the cutting edge of this stuff. So there are these sites that are converting their content over to iPad and iPhone format. And they're doing it very quickly because they understand that's where the future is, and they don't want to be stuck with this old tech.
Right. iPhone sells 1.7 million in the first 3 days, the best-selling iPhone to date. That kind of underscores what we were saying, that people want this. They're ready to upgrade for some reason. iMovie has been hacked to work on the even on the 3GS.
That must be.
I thought that was interesting.
Installation.
Yeah, because the story indicates that you have to have a jailbroken 3GS to do it. Yep. But that its performance is actually quite acceptable because Apple has been saying no, you have to have it on the iPhone 4 because of the necessity of the faster processor and the more RAM that's inside the iPhone 4. And yet they hacked it. They found that if you put it on a jailbroken 3GS, it works fine. And so the question is it really a performance issue, or is it just another thing to tempt people to purchase an iPhone 4?
I would bet that the amount of RAM, which is 256 megs on an iPhone 3GS versus 512 on an iPhone 4, is not a limiting issue because 256 megs is exactly what's on the iPad, and you got to believe they plan on doing iMovie. They should. If they don't do iMovie for the iPad, they're really missing a bet.
Yeah, and Real Director already works on an iPad and also works on an earlier version, so you can edit video on these devices without a problem.
I like Real Director. That was a pick of ours some months ago. In fact, when people said, iMovie on the iPhone, I said, well, Real Director's been doing the same thing, maybe arguably better, for some time. If you like iMovie for $5, maybe you should look at Real Director. Is it $5? I don't know if it's that.
Real Director's is
less.
4.
Yeah.
So it's a buck less. It doesn't do certain things, like you can't shoot video directly from the iPhone into Real Director, so you have to shoot it in the camera app and then import it.
Not a surprise.
Not a surprise. I find its output is not as good as iMovie's.
Okay.
When you export from Real Director, it's uglier than it is coming out of iMovie, but you can split clips that you can't do in iMovie. You have control over titles. So in iMovie, you can't control the length of a title or change the font, and you can do that in Real Director. But the Real Director's interface is also more complicated, so you have to spend more time with it.
I want to move on and talk more in just a bit about the news in the Mac world. But before we do that, I want to mention also a new sponsor, Hover.com. We've been talking about them for a week or two. We've moved all our sites over to Hover.com. I'm kind of a Hover fan. If you haven't tried it, you might remember it as Domains Direct. That's the new name, is Hover, Hover.com. They've been selling domains for more than 13 years. They've been around a long time, but Hover has made it very straightforward, very simple. In fact, if you go to twit.hover.com, that's our special URL, you'll get a special deal on your domain names, a little discount, 10% off. You also see what a great site this is in one simple respect. It's easy, it's clean, there's not 50 pages and 50 clicks before you get your domain. They've got a complete help resource. Lots of information there about managing, forwarding, and transferring domains and email. Very affordable domain forwarding with no email starting for $15. With one email box, $35. 4 email boxes, $60. The domain registration is as simple as can be. It's where I get my domain names now, and I encourage you to do so, especially because their support is fantastic. Hover, Hover.com. They decided there had to be an easier way to register and manage domains and email, and they've started it with Hover. Do me a favor. Next time you want to register a domain name, just give it a try. twit.hover.com. Save 10% when you use that URL. twit.hover.com. I thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. So let's see here. What else is big in the news right now? Chrome beating Safari as the #1 browser. You'd think Safari would have a kind of complete domination on the Mac side, but even I am using Chrome now that it's out on the Mac. I really like it. Which do you guys use? Chris, are you using Safari still?
Yeah, I jump around. You know, I use Safari sometimes. I use Chrome sometimes.
Firefox
every
at all?
so often. Yeah, I do use Firefox. We have the kind of publishing system we use at work isn't compatible with everything in Safari. I start my work in Safari, and then every so often I'll find something where I can't load graphics, and I need to jump over to Firefox to do that. I like Firefox a lot, but for some reason I keep jumping back to Safari every time they come out with a new version.
Just to try it.
Because and I've got some tools that work with Safari for doing various chores.
Do you notice a big improvement with Safari 5? Does it feel faster to you?
You know, not really. And maybe it's because I'm always banging around to a different browser that I haven't committed fully to any single browser. So when I get an update, I don't suddenly go, wow, this is so much faster, because I think, well, no, wait a minute, is it faster than Firefox? Or which one was faster yesterday than the one before? Or maybe that was Chrome. I don't know. So, no, I jumped to Safari 5, tried it, thought, yeah, this is fine. It's acceptable. But I didn't suddenly go, wow.
How about you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really pledge allegiance to any one browser. I'm sticking with Safari because it's prettier. I like the reader feature. And there's just one thing I don't like about Chrome. I need to be able to drag windows around. I don't know why they decided to make the title bar into a tab bar, because now every time I try to move around a window, I wind up switching to a different tab instead.
Right.
I just can't get my head. It's not a big deal. It's just that I just can't get my head around it. And if I had it, and it's not that I'm boycotting it for that reason. It's just that to me, a browser is just a very practical and functional piece of software.
Right.
And all of its features are inside the page itself. It's not so much the features around it.
It's a utility, really.
Exactly. I mean, maybe someday, maybe someday I'll find like a plugin that's available for one browser but not the others that totally transforms the experience and makes it into a deal breaker for me. If I had an Android phone, I'd certainly be switching to Chrome, because all the really good plugins that take advantage of Froyo 2.2 are available first for the Chrome browser. The level of integration you have between the browser and a Froyo phone is pretty high, but that's not applicable to me, so I've been sticking with Safari.
Here's a story that I thought was kind of inflammatory, and I bring it to your attention with a caution that there's no confirmation of this. It came out a week ago from addictivetips.com. According to them, an Apple employee who works in the iPhone development department leaked information, most of which will come as a nasty shock to users. According to this employee, with iOS 4, AT&T locks all U.S. phone owners to their network via regular, like every 7 to 14 days, OTA updates. In other words, you try to use this with another, we don't know yet. I guess we'll find out. If you try to use this with another carrier, you'll be locked down. Apparently, Apple is saving user information via FaceTime. FaceTime lacks encryption. This would be easy to verify. And as a result, according to this leak, some Apple employees are just staying away from iOS 4. They're nervous about iOS 4. According to this leaker, there's a line of code that sends over-the-air updates to the user every 7 to 14 days, which detects and locks the system if you're not using AT&T. I haven't seen confirmation of this. Now, the phone has been jailbroken. I was at Food Camp over the weekend with Sorik, the guy who does Cydia, the store on the jailbroken iPhones, and he came up to me all excited Sunday morning and said, "They jailbroke it. I was up late last night." I think it's a 17 or 18-year-old kid who does the main jailbreaking, so it didn't take him long to do that. So I think we'll find out pretty quick if this OTA update does make a change. And I would guess that if that's the case, that the jailbreakers are on it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean they're so fast, and I'm actually surprised that the main jailbreaker is as old as 17.
I know.
I think it's always a 12-year-old, but
yeah,
before they hit puberty and get distracted. So yeah, I am following this simply from the jailbreaker side of it because I've jailbroken a bunch of stuff and I'm interested in to see how this works. And I expect they'll be the ones to let us know pretty quickly and then find a way to get around it because they always do.
One of the reasons people jailbroke, of course, was for a variety of apps you can't get, but the other one was things like multitasking. What do you guys think of the multitasking in iOS 4?
I think it works great. It's obviously a little bit more limited than what you get on Android, but the first time that I was able to live a dream that I've had for the past year, which is to use the GPS turn-by-turn navigation app that I like, which is Motion X GPS.
I love it, by the way. On your recommendation, I bought it on the iPad. It's remarkable.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But I wish it had a really good dashboard because oftentimes I'm using it. I just need verbal cues that, oh, by the way, your exit is coming up. I really prefer to have that A Smart HUD. So the ability to have that heads-up display program giving me my speed and my travel information. Meanwhile, having voice turn-by-turn directions from the other GPS app also run in the background, and both of them have access to the GPS is a really big win.
Have you tried this Motion X on the iPad?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, during the Geek Cruise, while the ship was pulling out of New York Harbor, that's when, hey, I want to get a picture of the Statue of Liberty. Oh, it's on the wrong side. Hey, I want to get a picture of the... Oh, we've already passed it. And you really do feel like a navigator when you have this huge moving map with all kinds of details in it that you can zoom in on at any point. I do think the interface is a little bit cluttered, but it is a fantastic app. It's so tempting for me to buy a car mount for my iPad because I just want that millennium. I've got a car with 120,000 miles on it. I expect to put another 30 on it before I buy another one. I just like the idea that it just has like the trip computer from the Millennium Falcon there over the center console.
It does. It's monster. Yeah. So this will run in multitasking on the iPhone, not on the iPad, obviously, yet.
Right. It will run happily in the background and keep giving you voice.
But you just hear the audio. You don't obviously can't. And
exactly. And of course, when you switch back to it, it doesn't need to recapture GPS. It doesn't need to relaunch as it used to, like an iPhone 3. It's just been keeping tabs in your location all you go. So.
One of the things that puzzled me about the multitasking, if you look at the multitasking, everything you've ever run is in there. How much of that is really running? I double tap here and I get, just kind of like this endless list of apps, stuff I haven't run for days. Is this all running in the background?
No,
it's not
those are indication of recent apps that you've been running.
I see. You can't
so you
press
want to go
and
back to something
hold.
you were doing yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't press and hold and subtract them from the list. So these are not, and that's typical of Apple. It's not very clear what these are. They show up in the multitasking pane.
Yeah, you'll see them in descending order. So the most recent app that you left is, if it's not currently running, will be on the farthest to the left, the closest to the iPod area. So you could dash back to that if you want to.
And finally, there is orientation lock. It's if you scroll all the way to the left, you get player controls for whatever music player is playing. I guess it knows the difference between iPod and Pandora because whatever's running in the background, that's what you get the controls for. And I like the orientation lock because that's something I use sometimes on the iPad, and it's really handy to have that. But it's not real multitasking going on here, is it? I mean, is it?
Well, I mean, it's no mobile device does real multitasking, or at least not according to the tests you'd develop if you were to define it the way we define desktop multitasking.
Right.
And it's not as ambitious as what you'd find on Android and some other operating systems.
Right.
But it is true multitasking in that events really do keep happening in the background with third-party apps while other things are going on in the foreground. The difference is that you don't have the sort of thing where any arbitrary application, simply by virtue of the fact that it's running on OS 4, keeps running and stays completely active in the background.
Right.
So if you have like a photo uploader, you don't have to stay inside the app for the next 8 minutes while it continues to upload like your 30 or 40 photos to Flickr.
Right.
You can move to the foreground. The app, if it's properly written, can tell the OS, oh, by the way, I've got this task that I'm in the middle of. If you could just make sure you don't suspend me until I finish this task, that would be awesome, sir. Thank you. So it's more of a practical and functional multitasking that focuses on things that you would really want an app to do in the background, as opposed to a la carte, whatever the app is, let it do whatever it wants in the background.
If an app is multitasking aware, it will continue to run in the background as long as resources are available.
Running in the when it doesn't run in the background per se, it has to be one of these Apple created 7 APIs, 7 specific kinds of tasks that an application can continue to do in the background, just full out continue to do in the background. That's why Pandora can continue to stream music. That's one of those APIs. It uses Apple's own code for streaming music or for providing an audio channel in the background. Same thing for keeping navigation going. Same thing for keeping spoken commands going, that sort of thing. If you wanted to do, but it's not arbitrary. If I were creating a Twitter client and I wanted to make sure that every time that the application stays in the background and always badges in the foreground how many direct messages and how many times a certain keyword has been mentioned, it can't do that through multitasking. It would still have to do that through push notifications.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, what else can we talk about today before we get our picks of the week? We talked about Hulu. We talked about all about the iPhone. Any other big stories that I've left out? iPhone sales, 1.7 million. Pretty amazing. Oh, there is a rumor, we don't know if it's true, that the iOS 4 will come to the iPad in November. We knew it would be sometime later this year. This from a release for iAd, outlining advertising plans for iAds. iAds will go live on iOS apps for the iPhone and iPod Touch starting July 1. And the story and advertising age said some are weeks, perhaps months, away from having an iAd in the system. But an agency exec with several iAds in the works says most advertisers won't be there on July 1st. There just isn't enough time. And that November will be when it hits the iPad. I mean, it's not like I'm waiting with bated breath for iAds. I guess I can live with the fact that they won't be ready July 1. And iOS 4 on the iPad, though, should be pretty nice. I imagine it will be iOS 4.01 or 4.1.
Yeah, again, I mean, background multitasking, it isn't the full bore multitasking that you're getting on the desktop. It's not even the more ambitious kind you're getting on Android, but it really does change the way you interact with the device. Even if it's just the idea that I can leave an application, come back to it 10 seconds or 10 days later, and ideally it will actually be exactly where I left it. I don't have to see that startup screen again and go through the update process all over again. That alone just really changes how happy you are using the iPhone and the iPad.
And I'm completely used to unified inbox now, so that when I go to my iPad and I go into mail to check mail, I go, oh, really? Do I have to check every single account I had instead of... It's amazing how quickly I got used to the idea of the unified inbox and how much I like it. So it does seem, jumping to iPad now, I was going,
oh, now I got to go back and forth. By the way, thanks to Houdini7 for updating our Twit app to work with iOS 4, and it does now background multitask. He did it like in a day or two, so thank you, Houdini. So if you are a user of the Twit app on the iPhone, you'll be able to multitask in the background, continue to listen to Twit as you do other things. According to iSupply, the Apple iPhone costs Apple about $171 to build. If you add in another $35 for licensing fees and set aside for warranty claims, the total cost of the phone, $208. Just a little bit more than the subsidized price. The 32-gigabyte iPhone 4, total cost of $230 for that extra gigabyte of RAM. That sounds like it must be one of the most expensive iPhones yet.
Yeah, I think that one of the teardown reports was saying that the display alone costs something a little less than $30, which is pretty high for the cost of a phone.
Yeah, that's the LG IPS display. Nice display. Also, $24 for the flash RAM. And yeah, so I mean, look, there's a good healthy profit margin in this. Nobody's denying it, but it is a fairly expensive phone to make. We took it apart, on Thursday. We had the iPhone repair guy in, and he took it apart, and he said this is the nicest build yet. He said a very tight, very well finished internally as well as externally, a really well done hardware device. Let's see, iSupply estimated the 8 gigabyte. No, I guess it's getting cheaper. The 8 gigabyte first generation iPhone was $263 with a 56% profit margin. So the costs are down about 30% since they introduced the iPhone in 2007. Get more, pay less. Seems to be the way it is in the micro world.
Well, back then they didn't have so much. They didn't have any other phones like it they're competing with.
That's right.
It's incredible. Every month they get another phone that is iPhone-like and very, very good.
Yeah. So it's great news
they needed to jump.
Great news for consumers that we do have these choices. And I have to say, I am still undecided about whether I'll move to the iPhone 4. I really am happy with the Nexus 1 running 2.2. I just can't, I'll miss something on either one, to be honest. But I have to. I think I'm really leaning towards the iPhone for one simple reason: the incredible still camera. Yep. Having a great 5-megapixel camera in your pocket is really nice. And I took a lot of pictures this week.
Yeah. Particularly when you combine it with a great application like Auto Stitch.
Right.
I did a couple of panoramas over the weekend, and when you start off with a phone with a camera that is that good, and then you stitch together several of these 5-megapixel images from a landscape,
well, I'll have to
what you wind up with is something that's like, my God, I just made a bus ad. So I need to call the Altoids people because they'll give me $80 for this easy.
When we were in China 1 year ago, Andy, I did a lot of auto stitching. Is that still your favorite, or is Pano? Do you like Pano better? Which is your favorite?
I still like Auto Stitch. I should go back and check out Pano. I do remember that I checked out Auto Stitch, Pano, and another one, and it really was no contest. Auto Stitch was the easiest. It produced the nicest, the smoothest panoramas, the least amount of fuss. And the one I was happiest with. Yeah. You just reminded me, though, of the problem of iPhone apps is that in a competitive market, there's such leapfrogging going on that just because you gave up on something a year ago doesn't mean that this company hasn't found their car keys in the last year. So
how are you guys using photos? Do you like folders rather? Do you like folders? Are you using them? Are they satisfying? Would you like a better implementation?
I'd like a slightly better implementation. I find that because I have a lot of apps on my iPhone, I think as a lot of us do, and you toss them into folders, and now you've got all these little holes here and there around the interface, and you have to drag icons to fill in the holes if you don't want to scoot screens, because that's the whole point of having folders, is so you don't have to do this.
Right.
And I would really like there to be, just within the reset home screen option, is to reset the home screen and move all the folders and not take everything out of the folders and put everything in alphabetical order again, because that's not the way this should work.
So say that
I put them
again.
in
So if
folders.
you reset the whole the home screen, it resets everything?
Yeah, it takes everything out of the folders again and throws them back on the desktop. So, no, that's not the idea. I went through all this trouble to organize it into folders and don't spit them out again so that I have to put them back in folders. So, yeah, it seems like, and it doesn't seem like Apple that way, that I can't just drag folders, put things in folders and then have everything kind of suck up so that now I'm on 2 screens instead of 7.
Yeah, I use 3 screens total. I have to say, I made a utilities folder, which includes, of course, the settings icon, but a lot of other icons that I might go to a lot of times. And I put that on the top. I love it that I can put that on the home bar or the dock. That's pretty nice. And then I keep my games right on the first page. But I also have folders, a second page of commonly used apps, and then a folders page for all the rest. You're limited, though. I mean, you can't put more than 3 lines of 4 icons. Is that right? You only can put 12 icons.
Right. You only get 12 icons in there.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of games, as I do, then you end up making
games 1,
a couple of
games 2, games 3.
1.
Yeah.
Don't you think that it's time to abandon this structure of icons that was? It seemed like it was always designed for the idea of you get an iPhone, it comes with 10 built-in apps, and then you're going to be wanting to put a handful of bookmarks on it.
Yeah.
I really think that they should have the equivalent of smart folders. They should have the equivalent of a text view where I can simply do one tap that says show me all the photo genre apps, and then it will give me a text scrolling list of all the photo apps. Then I type the ones that I've used most frequently are the ones at the top. I can get to that way. I can get to almost every single application that I use with just 2 or 3 taps. I don't get this stuff where I have to either scroll through 6 different pages of apps to find the icon I want, or it's up to me to organize things physically. And I know it is my responsibility, but it seems as though the OS could be giving me a lot more help. We'd also be getting a lot of help from app manufacturers, because the number. Remember, just a few weeks ago, when Lisa Bettany was in here and was talking about our Camera Plus app, and even if you search for Camera Plus, well, which of these 3 applications named Camera Plus were you talking about? And of course, we wound up downloading the wrong one at first.
Right.
It's terrible when I'm pretty sure of the application I want. It's not something that I use every single day, but I use it often enough to keep it on my phone. But when it's reduced to an icon that is way too artistic, doesn't really say what it does, and the text underneath it just simply says plus, or it simply says book, saying thank you very much, but which of these 9 different book reader applications are you? Right. So I really think that this is ripe for raising the red banner of revolution. If there's if there's something that sometimes tempts me to carry around a jailbroken phone, it's that I would much rather have a much better application launcher than the one that Apple gives me.
Well, I'm with you on that. In fact, that to me was the one thing when I got this iPhone 4, coming back from a Nexus 1, it felt like it was a little antiquated in the UI. I mean, the widgets that you can do with Android, the organization capabilities of Android did feel a little bit more advanced than this kind of array of icons. Folders was much needed, and it is a big improvement, but it's still a little bit clunky.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. It would be nice to have a list, or at least one of their little selection wheels, so that you could go down through your collection on a folder, give you alternate views, but it's not cute. And I think icons are. I mean, the whole idea of playing with this iPhone is there's an icon, and I will tap it, and it launches, and that's magical. But to have multiple views and say, no, I don't want the cute little icon, and I want it to be like my Mac, so I can see it in list view, or I can see it in hierarchical view or something. That gets geeky, and suddenly you lose mom and pop because they go, ew, what's that? I don't want that to happen. Right. So again, it's the question on the iPhone, do you provide functions for power users who want to be able to just get to things quickly versus mom and pop?
I think that's a relevant question. I mean, are mom and pop frustrated by having 5 different pages of icons that sometimes confuse them as to what their individual uses are? If all Apple did was simply say there is an automatic folder, it's a smart folder, it's called recently launched applications.
That's a great idea. Smart folders is a very nice idea. Not only that, but make the smart folders also contain items from every other from all kinds of other different content areas. Just another one says, here's the 25 most recent things that have been music files that have been synced to the device. But I would 25 most recent web pages. Yeah.
I mean, but I would settle for just here are the 25 the 10 applications you've most recently launched in order. Go.
I almost don't want to mention this story, but Bloomberg has it again. Verizon launching an iPhone in January. It's a rumor with, quote, two people familiar with plans.
It's like the Lindsay Lohan obituary. You just got to keep writing this every single month because some month you're going to be right and you're going to be glad you put that work in.
Oh, you are a sick puppy.
Is that January 2011, 12?
Oh, they didn't say that. You're right. January.
Okay, well, there you are.
Sometime in January. Although, remember that the Wall Street Journal in March said that CDMA iPhone production would ramp up in September. That would kind of jibe. You start ramping up in September for a January launch. Would you think, I mean, they're not going to announce it at Macworld Expo. Apple might have an event in January. Wouldn't it be ironic that Apple abandons Macworld Expo and then 2 Januaries in because they don't want to be forced to make announcements on their schedule, and 2 Januaries in a row makes announcements, big announcements?
Well, also, you know, there was a problem with even when they did WWDC, where because they had an audience that was mixed of members of the media and members of the developer community, they had 2 different audiences. Right. They had 2 different messages for each one of them, and a great number of members of the media were not even aware, myself included, initially, that there was even a demo room set aside. Because Apple wanted to make sure that the demo room did not get flooded with developers who were just curious and wanted to put their hands on an iPhone for the first time.
Right.
And, you know, I think that it's more of a logistical thing where, yeah, it seems kind of awkward that they are going to be having their own event. They might be having their own event 10 days before Macworld Expo in the building that's right next door to where Macworld Expo is going to be. But at least they know who every single person in the room is, and to their mind, they will have a more successful event.
Right. Let's take a break, come back with our picks of the week. But before we do that, I'd like to pick a book or two for you to read from Audible.com. Audible's that great place to go where you can get there are 75,000 titles now on Audible. Actually, that's probably even out of date because Audible's growing so fast all the time. If you go to audible.com/MacBreak right now, you can get an Audible book absolutely free. You sign up for the Gold account. That's a book a month. And your first one is free, and we like to always recommend books for you. Andy Ihnatko seems to be particularly adept at that. Andy, do you have one again this week for us?
Yes. Now, this is a book that I didn't listen to via audio, but it's one that I read 2 weeks ago. Mark Frauenfelder is one of the founders of BoingBoing.net. He's also the founding editor and the current editor of Make Magazine, that great magazine about do-it-yourself and building stuff. Yeah. And he recently came out with a new book called Made by Hand, Searching for Meaning in a Throwaway World. Which is, it's an interesting book. I think it's perfectly timed for the summer because it's about a 300, in print at least, it's about a 250, 300-page book about getting more, his own little journey in getting more connected to building things and making things and understanding why things work. There's only one bad part of the, only one disappointing part of the book. The very first it's set up as little episodes on different projects that he decided to tackle himself, from building instruments to making honey to educating his own daughter. Some of these things with success, some of these things with failure, but it's always interesting. If you do get this book, don't get thrown by the first chapter. I think he made a mistake. The first chapter is about visiting really just crunchy hippie commune where it's where their attitude, I'm not quoting here, but the impression that I get from the chapter when he's reporting what these people are telling him is like, no, you know what? I'm not going to buy a Coke. I'm going to make my own cola because that way I'm not being controlled by the corporations and the government. Like, okay, thank you. You know what? A Coke cost me 65 cents. It's delicious, it's delightful, it's refreshing. I'm going to buy it. That's really not what I came for. But that's the. I wish he'd put it like near the end. So for the first 3 chapters, I was sort of tensing myself for, oh great, now I'm going to find out that if I don't make my own pants, I'm killing small children in El Salvador or something. But no, it really is a lighthearted but still a very thoughtful book. One of the best things about it, and this is something that I like particularly about audiobooks, is first-person narratives of nonfiction where there are areas in which I agree with what this person is saying and areas in which I think that it's slightly misguided, because I drive sometimes an hour to certain places alone. I can have arguments with myself and with the narrator in the car where I can say, well, why don't I think that makes sense? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't you do it that way? And so
isn't that fun? I love doing that.
Yeah, I mean, so I really liked it a lot. It's not a long book either. It's 7 hours and 41 minutes. Some of the books that I do listen to take like weeks and weeks to get through. I think you can easily get through this one in a few weeks' time. But as I said, very entertaining book. Makes you think a lot and very entertaining.
And Mark is one of the genuinely nice guys in the business. Boing Boing is fantastic. He's fantastic. I saw him at food camp. He came up, said hi. The book is a great read. And the chapter on making the perfect espresso alone is worth the price of admission. And I learned how. Temperature and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good example because I love he tells the story really, really well about how he was unsatisfied with not that he wanted to be independent and be good. Our pioneer forefathers made their own espresso. Why shouldn't I? Right. It's just that he really wanted to have the ability to pour a perfect espresso instead of having to throw out one of every three. So he did the online research and got the coffee, the espresso maker that everybody recommended. He couldn't get it to work properly, so he found like the greatest espresso maker,
the king of baristas,
in the world, who did the whole it was like taking a car to like an Indy 500 pit where he took it apart, saying, okay, well, this is working fine, this is okay, the temperature regulator is off, you should do an upgrade to the regulator to do a digital one where you can do a set point, doesn't hold the and you learn. I'm not a coffee drinker, but it really made me interested in the process where he now has to hack his espresso maker with all these component upgrades and work and increasing its success about 1,000%. And now through the upgrade, through the aftermarket hardware upgrades, like he's building a car or something, and through actually learning how to properly make a espresso for the first time, he's actually pulling perfect espressos. It's a good over the shoulder tutorial at when people who are obsessed with coffee. I'd be the same way about the picking when the sodas are four for $10. For the Cokes, I'm the one who's reading the product codes that are spray painted to get the freshest ones and the best ones. And so sometimes it's great to peek into someone else's obsession and determination.
No kidding. Really a great book. Made by hand, searching for meaning in a throwaway world. But 75,000 titles, you're sure to find something you love at audible.com. Here's the deal. Go to audible.com/MacBreak and you could pick a book that's going to be yours to keep forever. You'll be signing up for the gold account, but you can cancel at any time, and the book is yours. And this would be a great one to start with. Audible.com/MacBreak. A world of great audiobooks is waiting for you. And I should mention, I got a little freebie for you, a little extra treat. If you go to, right now, Audible, let me see if it's still, through July 2nd, before you sign up for the gold account, I got a little sneaky trick for you. You can get another book free. Just go to audible.com/summer. It's the Audible Summer Free Giveaway. You don't even need a credit card for this, but you've got to do it before July 2nd, 2010 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Lots of books to choose from. This is going to be the hard part. I can make some recommendations here, but if you want to browse through them, there's a ton of stuff. Science fiction, history, Master and Commander. This is a smart one for them to give away because you'll listen to the first of these Patrick O'Brian sailing novels take place in the Napoleonic Wars. They're incredible. And then they got you hooked, and there's 20 more. I listened to these for 5 years.
And they're beautifully done, too. I love those books.
Yes.
And the recordings and the narration was so good on those.
He's the guy. I mean, you know, you go back to the paper, and it's like, no, I have to listen. What else? Oh, The Life of Pi, if you want a great narration by Jan Martel, is maybe one of my favorite audiobooks ever. The Time Traveler's Wife, I just finished it. This is free. You can pick one of these books absolutely free. You don't need to give them a credit card or anything. So this is the sneaky trick I'm telling you. David Sedaris, live at Carnegie Hall. Go to audible.com/summer now through July 2nd. Get one of these free. Then just wander in as if you've never been there before, audible.com/MacBreak. Sign up for the gold account, and you get another free. 2 free books, but only through July 2nd. Audible now works with not only the iPhone and the iPod, but also BlackBerry. They've got the new Audible for Android that is killer. In fact, I pray they write one like this for iPhone. And, of course, Zune and Kindle and many other devices. Audible.com/MacBreak. Time for our picks of the week, everybody. And I'm going to start today. Give Chris Breen a chance to think. Give Andy a chance to breathe. Lightroom 3 is out, and I am impressed. Now, you know I go back and forth between Lightroom and Aperture, and you probably, before you decide what you're going to buy, you should probably try both. Both have a free 30-day trial. But I am, I am a Lightroom fanatic. Now, There's some advantages to Aperture in terms of, it handles movies and so forth. But Lightroom, in my mind, because it uses the Adobe RAW engine to render the pictures, and it has a new, the sharpening tool is fantastic, but it has a new low light tool that is really spectacular. And if you've got some pictures like this one I'm looking at that were shot in kind of low light, the new cleanup tool for this is really, really good. They also have some excellent lens corrections for pretty much any lens made. So if you're using a wide-angle lens and you've got some problems with the lens correction, this is great. So here's the noise reduction, and I can do it both in luminance and in color, and it's a slider, so I can see exactly what I'm going to get in real time. This is better than the Nik effects. I mean, I use a lot of different plugins, and this is just fantastic. Lightroom 3 is now out. It's been my favorite for a while. $99 to upgrade if you're already a user. I think it's $299 to buy from Adobe. And it is Windows as well as Mac. And by the way, when you buy it, you get a Windows and Mac serial number. So if you happen to have a Windows machine, you can run it on both. My pick of the week now to you, Mr. Chris Breen.
Okay. Well, as you know, I'm a musician. I'm a keyboard player. But sometimes I long to be a guitar player because guitar players get to be in the front of the stage and they get to make faces. And the keyboard players are just the guys in the back kind of doing that and paying attention. But I found something that's very cool for guitar players who are also Mac users. And I'm going to show it for those of you watching on video.
What is that? It's like a tap MIDI controller or something.
It is the Apogee Geo pedal board. I'm going to back up the camera so you can see it in its full glory. And what this is it's a controller for GarageBand and for Logic. And if you're a guitar player, you plug your guitar into the back. You can plug your headphones in there as well. It's a USB device. You plug it into your Mac, and you can set it as an input and output device. And what it allows you to do is when you're playing in GarageBand, you have these pedal board effects that you can use. Really cool. But when you want to trigger a new effect, you have to take your hands off the guitar, go over to your mouse, and go click. You are not going to get the chicks doing that. It's totally uncool.
So embarrassing.
Right. So better that you continue to grimace and make faces and stomp with your left or right toe, depending on your preference, on one of these buttons that appears at the bottom here. And this will kick in one of the effects. So, and the very cool thing about it is above each button, there is a little LED. And the color of the LED will change depending on the color of the stop box effect that you've got in GarageBand or in Logic. So, for example, a fuzz effect may be red on your screen. A little stomp box is red on the screen. The little LED will light up red if that's the effect you're using. Plus, it's got transport controls, so if you need to trigger GarageBand so it's going to record, or Logic, you've got a record button, you've got a play button, you've got fast forward and rewind. So if you're recording with this thing, you never have to take your hands off the guitar. Instead, you can just start and stop your recording that way, rewind for another take if you like. If you're using MainStage, which is within Logic, it's the live performance tool, you can control all the major MainStage functions so that you can play live with this thing. And it's a terrific way to play these instruments live. And the instruments are so good that you can play live and not feel like you're using some terrible synth sound or a cheesy little effect. The effects are really, really quite good. So this is $395. It's from Apogee. It's called the Geo. I've been testing it for a couple of weeks, and I like it. And it's built like a tank. The thing is heavy, and it will stand up to the most rigorous gigs you throw at it.
How much again?
It's $395.
Okay. And you obviously have to have musical ability to use it.
No, you can just buy it and just put it on the shelf.
Sounds like something I might do.
It makes an excellent doorstop. Yeah. No, for your Mac user guitar playing friends, this is a really nice piece of gear.
Awesome. Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week, my friend.
This is a game that I bought just so I could test out the gyroscope on the iPhone 4. Unfortunately, it has had a certain Plants vs. Zombies effect on my productivity because it's a really fun game. But it's an action arcade game. It's made by the folks at NG Moko, the same guys who do Godfinger, and it's called. I really have to do the Quinn Martin voice because it's quite an odd name. It's called Eliminate Gun Range. A Quinn Martin production. It's just a simple in gameplay. It's a simple target range type of game. Where you're just using the phone and the gyroscopes just to steer around, steer your aim around this little target range, and some parts of it are within your immediate field of vision and some are not. But it gives you two cool things. Number one, it shows you exactly how precise the gyroscopes are on the iPhone, because it's a very good, realistic, high definition, display optimized display. And it works very, very fast. But it's so responsive to how you move the iPhone that it really does feel like I'm not playing a game. I'm actually just recording something on video, and this is the camera view as I keep moving around. But as gameplay goes, it's very, very good, very, very simple, fun first-person shooter where the targets are human shapes that are actually painted onto tiles. You're killing nobody. You're still a butterfly of the universe, spreading nothing but goodwill and kindness.
It's about time. And eliminate gun range?
It's called Eliminate Gun Range.
Because they have an eliminate game. This must be part of the series of eliminate games.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one uses the gyro. Cool.
Eliminate Gun Range!
Cool.
Exclamation!
iPhone or iPad or both?
It is an iPhone game because I believe that it requires the gyroscope in order to work.
Okay.
Yes, requires iPhone 4 technology, 3GS support, and new content coming soon. But for now, you need the iPhone 4. But again, if you're trying to, there's also a Jenga game I think that was demonstrated by Steve Jobs during the keynote. Shooting stuff is a lot more fun. But it will convince you of there's this really cool component inside your iPhone, and you will be waiting for even better games to come out and maybe even more productive things to come out that support the gyroscope.
Cool.
Again, we already have games where the accelerometer sort of, you realize the difference is that the accelerometer control is more like having a joystick where it can sense, okay, he wants to move right, okay, he wants to move down, okay, he wants to go this way. The gyroscope says, okay, he's moved it half a degree faster, half a degree, now he's stopped. Okay, now he's actually sort of jiggering. Now his hands are shaking a little bit, so make sure that you wobble the view a little bit because that's how fine the control is.
I have to try this. It sounds like fun.
It's quite impressive. Even just as a demo of how good this computer is.
Right.
It's a great demo.
All right, my friends, we have run through all the stories. We have gotten our picks out of the way. I think it's time to adjourn for next week. Chris Breen is the senior editor of Macworld magazine, macworld.com, and the author of the Mac 911 column and the bouffant of all knowledge. Thank you for joining us, Chris. And a very talented musician. If you ever get a chance to see him, he performs in his area down the peninsula in San Francisco Bay Area, but I think you might catch him on a cruise ship from time to time, something like that.
Every so often, look for me and just put $1 in the jar.
He's the piano man. Andy Ihnatko is the ink-stained wretch of the crew. He is a technology editor for Chicago Sun-Times, and you can read his postings also on his blog, www.cwob.com, the celestial waste of bandwidth. Alex Lindsay will be back next week. I'm Leo Laporte. We thank you all for being here. Now get back to work. Break time is over.